Hello, good afternoon. What's up, everybody? Welcome into this edition of War Chant TV. It's live streaming on YouTube because it's National Signing Day. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, joined by Michael Langston, the most important man in the entire Florida State universe right now. I ain't lying. You're an important man right now, Michael. The morning was fun. We had to stretch for quite a bit as we waited for DJ Lundy to make his announcement. Since we last hung out, Florida State got another big LOI dropped. What do we know about Sidney Williams, my friend?
Yeah, Sydney's a very he's got more length to as far as when you talk about the safety position. I talked about Kaufman and we talked about this earlier. They're both really good, but high level length stuff like that. Sydney's going to bring a lot more to that. He had injuries throughout his high school career. He was actually looking like he was going to Auburn, which Coach Woodson was the main recruiter there, so it looked like he was going to Auburn. Then he had some injuries, and I think they decided to go with somebody else because they were kind of concerned, just with all the injuries, and they had to fill a spot. So I think he's one of those guys that got lost a little bit in there because of the injuries that impacted him. But for FSU to get a really talented safety like him this late was really big. I remember talking to Chad Simmons about him, and he's like, I've seen this kid a lot, and he's very good. I mean, they're very high on as far as his skill set. So I think that was a very good addition late in the signing period to get a talent like that. And I know Coach Woodson was on him pretty hard. I think they basically were telling him straight up, like, we offered Kaufman first, but if we find out that doesn't work out, we're definitely coming at you. And that also tells you how badly he wants to coach with or play for Coach Woodson, that he was willing to wait up to signing day, up to when he was announcing to go ahead and make that call. So it tells you a lot. And I have a feeling, just my time talking to the kid, I think the kid's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. So he's coming in there, ready to, prove a lot of people wrong that passed on him.
Was there a school or two that was kind of that probably was second for him behind Florida State ultimately?
Well, if it wasn't going to be FSU, it would have been Indiana. They were trying to push hard. I think Ole Miss was also in there, but I think FSU was the school that no matter what, if they offered, he was going to go there because of Coach Woodson. So I think those are kind of some of the same schools that were in there, but like I said, you had a need at safety. You want to get one more safety in this class, and they knocked it out again. Just another example of these guys have a backup plan for everything they do, no matter what, whether it's, defensive end, linebacker, or even, the safety position. They're certainly accomplishing all the things they got going on. Certainly we were waiting on defensive end TJ Davis later today. And then we'll see what Malachi Weidman and Kaufman do, although I think they're going elsewhere. But so far, really, solid day, and FSU's accomplishing the things that they wanted to get done.
Right. Donovan Kaufman from Louisiana, from Rummel High School down there in Metairie, will be committing. We're thinking here probably in the next few minutes. Noon was the slotted time, but as we wait for that to come down, just kind of a look right now at what Florida State has done so far today. As Michael outlined, Sidney Williams is the most recent LOI that came down, the defensive back from Alabama, from Vigor High School in Mobile. But Darren Williamson and Markeston Douglas, teammates from Brownsville, Tennessee, came down this morning, their LOIs. Robert Scott from Conway, Arkansas. Corey Wren, the speedster out of Louisiana. And then LaDamian Webb, who was Mr. Alabama high school football a few years back at Beauregard High School, if I'm not mistaken, went the JUCO route, and they were able to pull him. So by my count, that puts Florida State at 6 guys they've signed so far today. Michael, just, you've had a lot of good stuff to say about Robert Scott earlier this morning. What about that duo from Tennessee, and if there's anything else you want to add about Robert and Corey Wren and LaDamian Webb, maybe just to kind of maybe summarize some of the things that have been done so far today for Florida State?
Well, I think the 2 Tennessee guys were important because they needed another tight end. Obviously, you would like to get a grad transfer to go in there as far as the tight end position, but adding the Marquiston Douglas kid is very important. They're very high on this kid. They like, I think David Johnson was the main guy that was involved here, and they made sure as a staff they watched it, and there's like, we got to go get this guy. Michigan State was the next team that they were battling for in that situation. But I think to add a guy like that adds more depth to your tight end position and your board, and gives you a legitimate receiving tight end, because that's what Douglas does the best as far as the receiver. And then with Wilmington, I think he's a big body, 6'3", 190 type of receiver. Go across the middle type of receiver, very good after the catch. That's where he really stands out. Can improve on his route running some, as far as when he gets to college. But you could see how electric he is when he gets the ball out in space. He can make things happen. So very impressed with him. And then Corey Wren, talked about him this morning. Big addition because he's diverse from every other running back they had. So that was probably one of the highest guys on their board. I think he's a composite 4-star type of athlete, and when you combine all the rankings together. So adding him is going to give them a lot of choices and options the way they can utilize him in that offense. Basically, as I've explained to people, think Tyreek Hill, how he was used at Oklahoma State. That's kind of what you can expect the way FSU will probably use him in this type of offense, just all over the place. Going to make things happen, just both in the running game and also the passing game. So I think all those guys have been doing. And then Robert Scott, offensive tackle from Conrad, Arkansas. I think he was a major addition for FSU this morning. That was the one that was, to me, one of the biggest, just because of the need at offensive tackle, and he certainly helps your offensive tackle room. There's still more to go as far as you want to get a few more guys in there, maybe a grad transfer, JUCO, that you want to finish off this class with on the offensive line. But so far, very, very productive morning, and FSU's nailed on stuff that they wanted to nail on. Then you talked about the DJ Lundy linebacker from over there at Irwin County in Ocala, Georgia. To get him, basically, I mean, Chad Simmons did a phenomenal job writing the story up. It's up on War Chant for everyone to see, but kind of told him, like, going into the visit, he was favoring Virginia Tech, and that was probably where he was going. But just Coach Marr blew it out of the water as far as the visit. Coach Norvell did as well. Fell in love with everything, and FSU was able to basically pull that kid off in like 2 weeks. So to get a talented linebacker, it's one of the best, linebackers in the state of Georgia. And even a guy, and this isn't talked about enough, that Georgia actually wanted. I think they were going to offer him like a gray shirt, and he was going to be on scholarship. So Georgia was trying to maneuver ways to make it happen. But the fact that Georgia wanted him kind of took him on an official visit. They were pushing to try to get him. So for the fact that FSU was able to go in there and get a guy that they knew in some capacity that Georgia wants, that kind of tells you how good this kid is.
Michael, I made you jump right into it here this afternoon when we came back on the second stream today. Man, I should have probably warmed you up, so I apologize for that, but you've done a great job of outlining all the guys that they've signed and what they bring to the table. There's a little bit of sniping going back. I would say probably 85% of the fan base, I think, is pretty pleased with what Mike Norvell and the staff has been able to do. And sometimes, for whatever reason, we probably give the 15% that gripes maybe too loud of a microphone or too big of a stage. But I was thinking about it between, our last stream and now of just, it's kind of a downer a little bit when you think about, they probably go after a guy like Sidney Williams because they couldn't get a Donovan Kaufman. I don't know where people think, Poitier and Weidman kind of stack up versus one another, but they're probably going to split that, we think. Weidman will probably go elsewhere. But, it seems like Florida State they're so far removed from being in that sort of playoff conversation that it's like if you miss a few guys, it's not like they're one piece away. So I'm not getting too upset when a guy that, you hoped was going to come here doesn't. But at the same time, you are so far away that every little bit kind of helps. So I don't know, how do you balance sort of the you swing on miss guys? It's not a big deal, but it is kind of a big deal.
Well, I think the thing that bothers people, and it's more so with the Malachi Weidman thing than it is the Kaufman kid, because I think There's some people in War Chant that like Sidney Williams better because of his length. He's longer, he's taller. I mean, Kaufman's 5'9", 5'8", around there. So I think there's some people that like. I think it's the Malachi Wyman one that eats people up because you're talking about a guy that's a Rivals 250 receiver, a guy that's been committed for a while, didn't sign early. FSU did everything right, and that's the thing. That's the point I want to make clear. FSU did everything right with Malachi Wyman. I mean, Norvell got the job. He immediately went down to Sarasota or Venice or wherever, I guess Venice, and made him a priority, did an in-home, got the kid on campus for an official visit right before the early signing period. I don't know if the kid told him, Malachi told us in the post-interview, he is signing on Wednesday in the early signing period. So their thinking was he was signing in the early signing period. He didn't do that for whatever reason. He wanted to look around, and that stuff happens. But I think that's where people got like a dagger in the heart, where it's kind of a downer because of, I think if you got Malachi today, I think people would be very ecstatic about everything that's going on. But I think it's because of Malachi, that kind of dampens the mood a little bit because of, when a kid's committed that long, fans get latched on to a certain guy, and he's like I say, he's dynamic as far as a receiver. He could grow into a good one, but as I told people, he ain't Julio Jones. Like, people acting like he's Julio Jones, like he's not. He's a dynamic athlete. He's still raw as far as a route runner. He could turn into a very solid prospect, but then again, he could also opt for basketball and play basketball, and you might not ever see him anyway. So we don't know what he's going to do in the future. He seems to like basketball a lot. I tend to feel like, and this is just my opinion, that he favors basketball more than he does football, even though I think football's probably his future because that's what I think he could grow into and be pretty special at. But I think that's kind of the reason. I mean, I put myself in the fans' perspective of how they're feeling, and I think that's really the thing that bothers people is just a long-time commitment, and then you lose them. Even though FSU did everything right, you lose them, so it kind of dampens it a little bit. But what I tell people with that is, look at what he's already doing in 2021 class. Look at what you possibly could get on Friday with linebacker Brandon Jennings making an announcement. It's a 5-star type of talent. You already got a 4-star quarterback that I think is a Rivals 100, Rivals 250 type of talent. So you're already building momentum to make sure these things don't happen, that you don't lose kids like that. And you got to remember, too, Wyman does not have a relationship with Norvell except for, the meetings and the official visit and the stuff he's had. But so doesn't have a long-standing relationship there. Doesn't even have a long-standing relationship with Dugans, even though he has a good relationship with him. So that's the things you go through when you're going to lose some and you're going to gain some, as we've seen in this class. With DJ Lundy, the Tennessee kids, Sidney Williams, these other Robert Scott, these guys they've added. You're going to lose some, but you're also going to gain some. And I know it's disappointing to potentially lose Malachi, but you also had to look at the big picture of where we at receiver position. They look good. Where are we at in the other positions that they needed guys? Okay, you need an offensive tackle. You needed another safety. And then later today, TJ Davis announces you need a speed rush defensive end. Well, if you get TJ Davis, you pretty much nailed on all the things that you needed.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, man. You're on a roll there, man. I spaced out. No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, ultimately, they needed a quarterback. They got 2 of them. One of them's a 4-star kid, Chubba Purdy, so who knows? I mean, every quarterback that Mike Norvell has coached over the last, 7 years, which includes Power 5 programs. Granted, it was the Pac-12. But, I mean, Mike Bercovici there, Riley Ferguson when he was at Memphis when he first got there. And then he brought Brady Wright with him. I mean, he's pretty much any quarterback he's had has produced at a high clip. He's got 2 guys to sort of pick from. Luke Altmaier from Starkville, Mississippi is a guy that, is verbally committed for 2021. You need an offensive lineman. You needed instant help there. I mean, Deontay Taylor's about as, Landon Dickersons don't grow on trees. I know that probably hits a little too close to home for a lot of folks, but Landon Dickerson's a really good Power 5 offensive lineman. You lost one of those guys. It's tough to find those guys in the portal that are going to be real good instant impact guys. So all things considered, to get a guy like Deontay Taylor is a big sort of addition. Manny Rogers is a guy that a lot of people sleep on. Zane Herring rather. So they've added the right pieces to what you've said. Yeah, they're not 5 stars, but again, I think when you look at needs, they got most of their needs met with some pretty quality players. And then at least this gives you some momentum, some inertia to get going. And then you build into 2021 and they'll probably be off to a good start, we're hoping, like you said, come Friday. So I'm not that bummed about it, but I get the back and forth. I just wish we could all kind of agree and be a little more civil, Michael, because it's like when somebody complains, then everybody comes out, what were you expecting? You're stupid, you're a troll. And then they come and fight back and like, well, you're just sunshine pumpers. And it's like, can we just agree to disagree on some of these things and be respectful? But, I dream a little dream sometimes.
Yeah, not to follow up on that. They're likely not done. There's still the grad transfer market. There's still the summer for JUCOs that these guys can come in. They can still have additions if they want to add another receiver. They want to add another defensive end. They want to add another player. So that's the thing people have to remember. They're not completely done. We don't know if they already have some guys in mind that they're going to get. I mean, grad transfer tight end. We mentioned the 2 UCLA guys are coming over. Offensive guards coming for a visit in March. The tight end's coming over for a visit in March. So you could add those 2 guys. That fills your tight end situation, and then you add more depth as far as in the interior, and then I'm sure they would like to add a grad transfer as far as in the offensive tackle. To sum up this whole recruiting class for me, this is my opinion. If you get one more grad transfer, this thing Norvell's done as far as the job he's done is a home run, because you have you have your 2 starting potential tackles for going into 2020 season. That's what it's about for me. You get a grad transfer tackle, you get one more, home run as far as I'm concerned.
So anybody on the offensive line to you, if they get a grad transfer, that really cinches this thing up as
long as it's, obviously potentially it needs to be a solid guy. I have to do some research who they get, but if it's a solid offensive tackle that's a grad transfer, home run right there, because that's what they need to fill these holes where there's big problems. They got one side with Devontae Taylor from the transfer from FIU. Now they need one more, and if you get one more, obviously you'd love to get 2 more. That would be asking a lot, and that would be a perfect situation. But if you just get one more, you got your 2 tackles potentially to start the season next year. And I think that's, for me, the biggest thing, because that affects everything you're going to do on offense. And then the rest, you can just fill in. You can get another defensive end as far as a speed rusher, as a grad transfer or a JUCO. You could potentially pull that. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as the job he's done so far. But I've been impressed. I think it's a solid job. I think he's done just about everything. There's misses, but I think he's done just about everything you can do to fill these holes that they need to fill, because that's what it's about in this class. It's not about 4 stars and 5 stars and Rivals 100 guys, Rivals 250 guys. It's about getting guys that can help you, and that's what it's about.
In case you were wondering, currently right now, Florida State is ranked 14th in the nation according to Rivals.com, with a couple guys still out there. Donovan Kaufman, Malachi Wideman, and T.J. Davis. Of those 3, sounds like T.J. Davis is probably most likely. That announcement or decision is expected to come down around 2 p.m., which is about the time that we'll be talking to Coach Mike Norvell and some of the staff over on campus. People are also asking, there will be a signing day party per usual at the Car Museum in Tallahassee. It'll be at 6 p.m. I think that's going to probably be on ACC Network Extra streaming or whatever they call it these days. I don't know. I won't have it because I have cable and I live in Tallahassee, so I don't have the ACC Network, Michael. So it's a beautiful time.
You need to get DirecTV, Aslan. You need to get DirecTV.
I probably should. Only question that we got on the premium recruiting board right now, Michael, comes from FSU _Noel23. It's his first ever post, Michael.
Okay.
But It's Zach Evans. Did we not discuss that earlier in the morning? Is he the big time running back that just not going to
Yes.
happen?
Yeah, my opinion, this is what's going to happen. Either he's going to, from what I hear, go to Ole Miss. That will be the choice, in my opinion.
Okay.
Or he will wait and take another visit in March somewhere. Could be FSU, could be somewhere else. I don't know. So that's kind of where it's at right now. Do I give it a high chance? No, I don't. I know FSU's talking to him, so I will say that to our newest poster. And by the way, congratulations on your first post. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you here. But that's kind of where I stand, that maybe FSU could get a visit. They are talking to him, or they were at least as of last week. But if he doesn't sign with Ole Miss today, which is kind of the rumored team that I hear that he favored, then he will probably take one more visit in March, and then I guess decide whenever. But it's a really weird recruitment, because he supposedly signed a letter of intent. So if he signed a letter of intent, that means he's probably likely going to have to wait until the cycle is over, which might be his situation, might not be over till like June, July, or August. So he might not be able to sign another letter of intent until like in the summertime. So that's another thing to consider. Once you sign a letter of intent, it's a binding thing until all the lawyers and everything get that stuff squared away. So that's kind of where it's at with Mr. Zachary Evans.
What's the deal with? I mean, I probably should know this, but I don't know this. So what? Can you give me like the cliff notes on what happened with this kid? What I mean, because I pulled his profile up right now and it's on the stream. I didn't realize he was the number one running back in the entire state of Texas and in the entire country this year.
Yeah, very special. He was the best player in the Under Armour game. Got in some trouble during the season. Altercation with one of his coaches. There were other things that were happening with Zach. Another thing with Zach, too, is he still has a little work to do as far as qualifying. So that's also a concern. And then there was some situation, problems, I don't know the dynamics of it. There was issues at the Under Armour game during the week. So yeah,
he signed, but he signed it. Who did he sign an LOI with?
He signed the LOI with Georgia.
Ah, okay.
But Georgia did not they did not submit his paperwork. They no, we're not taking you. And obviously that impacted FSU, because then Dejon Edwards came in the fold. And if Georgia signs Zachary Evans, we're probably talking today about how Dejon Edwards is a Seminole. So that's how things can shift so quickly. But but at the same time with FSU, same thing with the Sidney Williams kid. If FSU doesn't offer, he probably goes to Indiana. If FSU doesn't push for DJ Lundy, he probably goes to Virginia Tech. So it works both ways. But in that situation with Zach, that did impact them as far as with Dejon Edwards. But in my opinion, and I shared this on the board, he's not a guy I would have pushed for, just because the culture and the stuff that Norvell's building around there is, everyone knows what they have to do. We're going to treat everyone the same way. The message has to be consistent. And then you're bringing in a guy that seems to be a character issue. And I see people on the boards, they're like, oh, you can just get rid of him. It's like, yeah, but that's stupid. You're bringing in a guy that could cancer up your freaking locker room, but then you're just saying, oh, you can get rid of him. But he might have already poisoned your locker room by that time when you do that. So my approach was, I wouldn't even have brought him in for a visit or tried to. I know he's the best running back in the country, but I just didn't think it was worth the chance. And there seems to be, the one thing you hear about this kid, just seems to be constant stuff that pop up with this kid that's negative. And I'm not sure that's somebody you want consistently around your program, especially when you're just starting out and you haven't even gone through your first year on the field yet. So, but that's just my take. That's not FSU's take. Or anybody else. But when you have that many concerns off the field, that kind of that's kind of a red flag to me.
Hey, let's take a question. We've had two of them. Jay Ricard came back, Kingpin _22, both of them over on the premium recruiting board. If you use the promo code NSD 3 for 1, you'll get 3 months of access to War Chant for the price of one. I mean, I don't know what else you want, people. The question is Mike Norvell high on Chad Mascoe like the previous staff, and will he reclassify?
He won't reclassify. I think he's already addressed that. I think he did that on Twitter. My opinion is that they do want him because he's coming over for the March 7th junior day. That's the next junior day coming up. It's a big junior day. The fact that they're inviting him and they want him there, that's telling me that they're sold on him. And I've watched Chad a lot. Chad's a versatile dual threat guy, but he's a pass first kid. Everyone thinks like Chad can move around. He's athletic and all that stuff. And he is those things, but he's also a good, solid passer. I mean, that's what he does the best. So I personally think he'll be a fit there. And I think once he gets there and Norvell, I think everything will be squared away. But the fact that he's been invited and he's coming to that junior day kind of tells me where they're at, that their intentions are that they want him.
All right. Where would he have played high school ball at if he didn't go down to IMG? Was he Thomas County or would he have been Thomasville High?
He was at Thomasville High. And that was a shock to everybody around there when he left because, this kid's been around Thomasville his whole life, and he was very young too, as far as, I think he started as a freshman, and this kid's got special qualities. He's going to be a good one. But then when I went over there after he'd already transferred to IMG, he actually had a meniscus injury in his leg, so he didn't play last year for IMG. I think this year he'll play. So I think as far as FSU is concerned, I think it'll all be squared away once that March visit comes around.
Let's take a question from the good folks on the YouTube. I think it was Nick Snyder, had the question. Was asking whether you think that, or when's the next time Florida State's going to sign a quarterback? Are they done with just Rodemaker and Purdy?
They will not sign another 2020 quarterback unless it's a JUCO or a multi-year transfer. Like, they don't want a one-year project. It hasn't ended well for FSU in those kind of situations. And the only time I think I've seen it work is like Jalen Hurts or Russell Wilson. Most of the time when you get a grad transfer at quarterback, if it's effective, is that kid is joining a solid program, a solid team that doesn't have holes around it. So I think Norvell's thinking is, I know what the roster is. I know what we have. Now, maybe there's a JUCO out there he's thinking about as well, but I know what we got with these guys. I'm comfortable with what my roster is with the scholarship quarterbacks we have. I don't want a one-year fix because he's coming in there. You're basically bringing in an unknown that you have no idea how he's going to connect with your team. And then two, there's still holes with FSU that even if he comes in and he's a phenomenal quarterback, it might not be a great fit. It's like, for instance, the Wake Forest kid that they got that went to Georgia, Jamie Newman. Yeah. That will be a good fit because he's joining already a solid program, one of the best teams in the country. That's a different situation. Now, the other one is Miami got Tyreek King from Houston. Problem with that is you got one of the worst offensive lines. They're probably worse than FSU's is, and so he's going to be running for his life the whole year. So on paper, I think the problem with fans is they look at grad transfers of like what they look at that old school. They're going to look at our school just like that. They're going to kill it just like that, and it doesn't work that way when you have holes on your roster. So I think that's the way kind of Norvell's viewed it, is it's not really going to help us bringing in a grad transfer. So that's kind of where they're at the quarterback position. Now, 2021, it's possible I could see them adding a second quarterback unless there's a 2022 guy that they're just blown away by, besides Mascoe, that they would bring in, 2 guys that year. But it's possible they could bring in another 2021 guy, and I will cover all the targets when we release the hot board. There'll be several guys on there that I'll list, and certainly going to be more guys added during the season. But I think that's something they're considering, and I would call it likely that they add a second one in this class, but our 2021 class. So we'll see how it goes.
Again, here's some of the recruits, prospects that Florida State had an eye on coming into today. DJ Lundy did sign with Florida State. Sidney Williams did sign with Florida State. Donovan Kaufman, on your screen, it says 12 p.m., which is correct a little bit. 12 p.m. in the great state of Louisiana, as Ed Orgeron would say. It's actually going to be 1 p.m. Eastern time. Malachi Weidman as well, 1 p.m., and then TJ Davis at 2 p.m. So we'll probably go another 10, 12 minutes. We'll probably go till a quarter till the hour. Because then we actually got to get ready to go to campus, or at least I do. I mean, Michael will be there too, but he'll be answering your questions on the premium recruiting board, but I'll have to get a hike on stuff. So probably won't be around to share in the adulation or the agony when Kaufman and Weidman pick their destinations. But then TJ Davis is another guy who does remain viable and available. And TJ Davis, defensive end, is such a evolving position, it seems like these days, Michael. You got edge setters and you got speed rushers, and you never want a tweener. Where do you think TJ Davis kind of maybe fits into the plan?
I think he's he's like I said this last weekend, that he was one of the most important recruits they had on campus. Even more important than Lundy was because he's a speed rusher, and I think he fits in. Now he's going to have to get in the strength and conditioning program, get his body right. But this kid's a very good edge rusher. He can get after the quarterback. That's why they like him. That's why they want him. They don't have many guys like him. So I think that's what he's going to bring to the table. Maybe a guy you see on third down that FSU throws in there if he's ready this year to play. That's kind of my take on TJ Davis.
Hey, back to Marqueston Douglas. I think he's listed as a tight end. I know you've talked about kind of his skill set and playing basketball a little bit, and also being defensive end, playing tight end. Could he eat his way into maybe becoming an offensive lineman? I mean, at 6'6", 250, I think about him just being 18 years old. And I mean, would there be any discussion or any thought maybe to move him to offensive line, or does it sound like defensive end or tight end is his future?
I think defensive end is definitely his future. You never know how guys can grow. It seems like all the fans always want to, hey, this guy can grow into this position and move him somewhere. But I think TJ's a pure defensive end. That's what he does the best. And so I think that's where he'll end up. By the way, pass this along. This is not FSU related, but
the world's listening, though. The world's watching, Michael.
Okay, Avante Williams, a talented safety, Rawls 100 safety. Most had him pegged to go to Florida. He just pulled a shocker and announced he's heading to Miami. So everyone thought he was going to Florida, and he actually ends up staying and going to Miami. So that's probably a shocker to a lot of people. He's actually already signed, so it's kind of a big blow to Florida in their class as far as not getting him in their class. It kind of goes back to what I've been saying. People have been bragging on the message board. Oh, Dan Mullen's such a great recruiter. I was like, this is more further example of Dan Mullen's a good recruiter, but he's not a great recruiter.
He's a really good football coach, though. That's pretty important, too.
Right. He's a phenomenal football coach, but he has a problem closing on top guys. This has been a consistent theme the last 2 to 3 years. Consistent theme in missing guys. This is another example of that. So,
when he was at Mississippi State, he lost a lot of the elite recruits heads up to Ole Miss, and insert your Ole Miss pays everybody joke there. But yeah, I mean, he was good at finding under recruited kids and getting the best out of them. Dak Prescott's probably one of the best examples of that. But I mean, I think other than Jeffrey Simmons, I mean, Chris Jones. I mean, those are two really good players. Though Chris Jones had a great game in the Super Bowl, and Jeffrey Simmons was a great rookie this past year. But otherwise, I mean, when it came to getting really big elite recruits, I mean, Ole Miss usually would beat them. But I mean, the whole thought was when he would get to Florida, he would be able to use that brand to kind of coast. But maybe this kind of hopefully puts a little bit of a damper in that theory.
Well, it just kind of further backs up to me what's been going on with him. I see a lot of people posting on the board like this guy's like a great recruiter and I mean, he's good at getting kids on campus. I mean, go no further than Timothy Smith in the early sign-up period. He visited Florida 6 times. He's committed to Alabama, but he visited Florida 6 times. Even after he committed to Alabama, ended up signing with Alabama. It's like they go there, but he doesn't know how to close it and close the deal. And you look at it, if you look at the perspective, okay, Miami's struggling, FSU's struggling, they should be dominating the state a lot more than what they are. And they're not. They're not controlling the state. They're not killing it like when Jimbo Fisher was tearing it up and, the year before they won the national championship, he was getting 5 stars like crazy. He was cleaning up because Florida was struggling. And when that's what you have to do. When teams are struggling, you have to take advantage of it. And I just don't think Florida has done that yet. When you look at the grand scheme of both of those teams being down in Miami and FSU, and they just haven't taken advantage of it.
All right. Let's take a question from the Premium Recruiting Board, mainly because this username is pretty solid. I like it. Although I don't know why it's not popping up right now. What's going on? What is the deal? Aslan, figure it out, Aslan. For some reason, the Norvell thing is still up there. I don't know what's going on here. I'm all over the place, Michael. I promise I know what I'm doing some of the days. Bear with me here, Michael.
Okay.
So you're going on vacation soon, right?
Monday. We're leaving Monday. I got one more thing.
Oh, geez, hit the wrong thing there. We're gonna get this thing on. We're gonna land this plane properly.
A couple weeks off.
All right. Hopefully, I'm not interrupting you the way I did in the earlier chat, which I've tried to fix it, by the way, folks. I'm not intentionally interrupting Michael, at least not every single time he talks. Hopefully that's been fixed. But let's get to the question here. It comes from Dr. Guacanoli. I mean, with a name like that, fantastic. He loves this class. Do you, Michael, know the plan with the interior offensive line? Seems they're still looking to upgrade. Question is, are they looking towards the future or for immediate help? I know Murray is in the picture, but looks like he'll have to sit a year. Is that the guy from UCLA?
Yeah, that's one guy from UCLA. I think he'll try for a waiver. There's not a guarantee that he'll have to sit yet. But if you do get that guy, I think it's more depth-wise that you want. If you got a chance to add more depth in the interior, I think they would like to do that. Any guy on the offensive line that's talented, especially in Murray's case, I think there's a few more out. There's another guard out there, Devon something, I forget his last name, but he's another one that's in the portal that FSU's been in contact with. So I think they would like to get one more interior guy just for depth purposes, and maybe can come in there, and win a job, But I think that's why they're doing that. And I think the interior, though, they're okay. They're not. It's not weak like it is on the tackle position, but it's kind of what I talked about before. These guys playing ahead and looking for the future. They want to give themselves every opportunity for depth to see if they can improve their situation, whether it's at the tackle position, the guard position, or the center position on the offensive line. These guys are always thinking ahead. So I think that's kind of what the feeling of them going after a guard, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think they want to add more depth and maybe add a guy that's better than what they have.
Was it Donovan Campbell from LSU you were thinking of?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, I just pulled up his recruiting profile from back in the day. And this is from class of 2016. He was 6'5", 340 pounds back then. Big boy.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's a guy they've been talking to, probably likely going to visit, later, probably in the spring or early summer. So they're always thinking, what can we do to improve their situation. I'm not going to bag on the previous staff, but that was not the line of thinking with how they did things. They did not address what the holes were, and that was kind of the big thing, and really a big problem a lot of people had with the previous staff was questioning of when are you going to start addressing what these holes are. So I think this staff understands that. They're prepared, they're organized, and they're getting it done.
Well said, Michael. All right.
Yep.
Again, we're winding down things here on this edition of War Chant TV. A couple guys still out there, obviously, as we mentioned. DJ Lundy, Sidney Williams, guys at Simon, Florida State, Donovan Kaufman, Malachi Weidman. On your screen, it says noon for Kaufman, but it's noon Central, so it's actually 1 p.m. here on the East Coast, the best coast.
Aslan, you got to look at my scheduled times on there.
Hey, man, I didn't want to say anything, but where do you think I got all the information from?
Oh, it can't be on my times, because I'm pretty sure I put 1 on there.
All right, well, maybe I did goof on that. I could have, I don't know. I did it like last night, like 2 in the morning. I didn't want to wake our graphic person up and have them do it, so I did it myself. But anywho.
I'm going to look at it just to make sure, because I don't want to call Aslan a liar. So I'm going to look on here.
You wouldn't be the first.
Actually, it says announcing at noon, so you were right. It should be announcing at 1. I don't know what happened in that, but yes, Kaufman's at 1. I'm going to change that right now. So Aslan was right, guys. He did not lie to you.
You know what they say about squirrels being blind and finding acorns, man. So maybe the first time. A reminder, folks. If you're not a member of warchant.com, really good time to start hopping aboard is right now. Use the promo code NSD, 3 for 1. That gets you 3 months of access for the price of 1. What are we doing, Michael? How are we going to stay in business giving all this stuff away for free, man? NSD 3 for 1. Use it, folks. It's a good promo code. Again, as we sit here right now, Florida State is ranked 14th. TJ Davis, pardon, Michael?
I was just going to say they're 15th now. I just looked at it.
Okay.
Because Miami got Avante Williams, so that kind of vaulted them up to like 12, I think. So, close to them. 15. FSU will probably move up. I mean, they might move up to 14. And then drop a little once things happen with Weidman, unless he pulls a surprise and picks FSU. But I'm not trying to be a homer here or anything, but the rank, the number they finish with is not really that important to me. It's what guys they get as far as filling the holes. Certainly you want a top 10, top 15 class, top 20 class, but if it doesn't work out that way, it doesn't work out that way. But this class is about filling holes. But that's kind of where they're at as far as the rankings right now, as far as the numbers. Because I know people care about that stuff, so just letting you guys know.
Right. I think the number right now is 23 total commitments. It actually says 16 on the screen right here. But Darren Williamson, Marcus Douglas, both from Tennessee, Robert Scott, Corey Wren, LaDamian Webb, Kentron Poitier, Brian Robinson, Chubba Purdy, Josh Griffiths, Alex Mastromano, Tate Rodemaker, Lawrence Toafili, Thomas Schrader, Lloyd Willis, Manny Rogers, Ja'Kai Douglas, Carter Boatwright, Jayon McCluster, Zane Herring, Stephen Dix Jr., Damori Tate, and Jadarius Green McKnight. Malachi Weidman still listed as a verbal commitment, although things seem to be sort of slipping with him. So, you go through that list, and I've seen people say there's, the needs have been filled, but there's not the, quote, star power, if you will. Who's to say, again, that these kids won't develop? I just think when you go through this, you gave yourself some options in terms of athletic ability with Williamson and Wren. They give you a lot of sort of flexibility in terms of the way you want to diversify your offensive attack. Poitier gives you a sizable offensive target, a pass catcher. I mean, huge wingspan being at 6'4". You got your offensive linemen. We haven't even mentioned the fact that the transfers, Cornell Scott and Devontae Taylor, these guys are going to be instant sort of contributors. And you got quarterbacks. You got Brian Robinson, who's a big time prospect. Chubba Purdy again, and Rodemaker. Those are big deals. And I think Schrader's a guy that'll develop over time. Manny Rogers is a guy who'll develop over time. Throw Ja'Kai Douglas there in terms of being an athlete and giving you some sort of flexibility that. Yeah, man, it's not. I mean, I don't know. It's not Kelvin Benjamin. It's not Rashad Green. But this isn't 2012 coming off a 13-12 win season and a ACC championship either. And it's 8 weeks to get this whole thing done. So I think and to your point, I don't think it's being a homer. You do have to put things into context, and it wasn't the best situation to walk into. And I think, I think Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times wrote that, Willie ended up having a better recruiting class his first year than Mike Norvell. And it's like, well, yeah, man. I mean, Florida State was like only a year removed from being in a New Year's Six bowl. They were 10 months removed, they were 5 months removed from being preseason number 3 in the nation. Juxtapose that with what Mike Norvell walked into. Yeah, they missed on some guys who would have liked to get a guy like Donovan Kaufman that we think will probably go to Vanderbilt. But again, man, they got some good pieces to work with here, and more importantly, momentum to go into 2021. Where's that hot board at, Michael?
That's not, well, we'll see when it goes out. That's not my choice when those things go up, but it'll get done. But I think, Aslan, I think you hit the nail on the head and everything. I think you touched on everything with the holes, and I just think people like sexy better than they like
steady,
feeling needs and being steady and filling gaps that there's weaknesses there. And you hit the nail on the head also with Willie Taggart when he took over. You're once removed from Jimbo Fisher being there, so there was a lot less to deal with, and then there were a lot more holes when Norvell took over, in my opinion, than when Willie Taggart took over.
By the way, shout out to the Taggart family. I guess Junior signed with FAU?
Yeah.
Good for them. Did Jeff Sims, is it official that he signed with Georgia Tech?
I do not know. I have to follow up on that, but I would imagine he did. Actually, I think he signed in the early signing period, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, you're right. What am I talking about?
Because he committed there early, so I think he definitely did sign there early. So, yep, I think we're close to the finish line, barring some surprise out there. The FSU's recruiting that we don't know about, that they're keeping secret until the right moment. But as far as we know, as far as this signing day, I think we're close to being done. Basically, just waiting on TJ Davidson. Like I told you guys earlier, it would not surprise me if he's already sending his letter of intent. FSU's just waiting for him to announce, and boom, there you go. So I think he's the last piece today. But never say never, because I thought it was the last piece in the early signing period, and then bam, Jarrett Jackson comes in the picture and transferring from Louisville to FSU. So I would never rule it out. I would also say, we haven't even talked about this that much, Aslan, but this was probably the best job that I've seen, even when Jimbo was here, of the preferred walk-ons that FSU has got commitments from, some really good ones. So I think they did a really good job this year with the preferred walk-ons. And those guys, I know people are thinking, they're not that important because they're not scholarship players. Now, sometimes it works out where these guys turn into getting scholarships. And I think they did a really good job of doing their due diligence and work. I think they worked just as hard on these walk-ons as they did as scholarship guys. So kudos to Coach Norvell. I know you probably won't be watching this, but if you are, good job with the PWOs, man.
Again, one last look at things. Donovan Kaufman, Malachi Wideman expected to announce at 1 p.m. TJ Davis, the most likely piece, as Michael said, things really winding down here on National Sign Day, and we're expecting that to come down at 2 p.m. If you're not a member, again, use the promo code NSD, 3 for 1. That gets you 3 months of access to warchant.com. All of Michael's insight, Corey Clark's columns, Ira's great insight and experience covering the beat, as well as obviously Gene Williams, our founder administrator, giving you the lowdown on everything. NSD 3 for 1, 3 months for the price of 1. It's quite amazing we do this sort of stuff. So with that said, Michael, I'm going to get ready to head to campus for the press conference. I'm sure I will probably see you there as well, but I know you'll, in the meantime, probably be on the premium recruiting board answering our subscribers' questions, right?
I will do my best.
All right, there you go. He's Michael Langston, the hardest working guy on Florida State Recruiting Beat. I'm Aslan. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you hopefully on warchant.com.